Yes, thank you. I had a good weekend. Thanks for asking, Michelle. All right, this afternoon at 3:30, there'll be a briefing here by Tanja Fajon, the Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Republic of Slovenia, and Ambassador Malovrh, the permanent representative of the Republic of Slovenia to these United Nations. They will be here to speak on the forthcoming Security Council elections. This morning, the Secretary General, Anotion Guterres, briefed member states on three of his policy briefs under our common agenda. The three briefs deal with the topics of reform of the international financial architecture, moving beyond gross domestic product, and the Global Digital Compact. The Secretary General said the three briefs provide ideas on how we can revitalize the multilateral system, accelerate efforts to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals, and keep global temperature rise to 1.5-degree limit of the Paris Agreement. He stressed that the briefs are meant to serve as an inspiration for deliberations and decisions which are in the hands of member states as they prepare for the Sustainable Goal Summit in September and the Summit of the Future next year. What matters is that we take action to tackle new and emerging challenges in a way that we deliver for all, restoring trust in international cooperation and each other, Mr. Guterres added. We expect all of the briefs, that's 11 in total, to be issued by the end of July. This morning, the Security Council heard from Abdou Abari, the special representative of the Secretary General and head of the UN Office for Central Africa. He started on a positive note, saying the region has more opportunities and resources than challenges, noting that preference shown by most member states in the sub-region is for dialogue to resolve tensions peacefully, quoting that the dialogue between the Central African Republic and Chad, as well as the mobilization of states from the region to resolve the crisis in the eastern part of the Democratic Republic of the Congo. But Mr. Abari added that the impact of the Sudanese crisis on Chad and the Central African Republic remind us of the urgent need to adopt a holistic approach to peace and security in the Central Africa sub-region. He paid tribute to the solidarity and generosity shown by the two countries, which have already taken thousands of Sudanese refugees, adding that without rapid and peaceful resolution of the conflict in Sudan, the impacts will be disastrous for Sudan, but also for all of the countries in the Lake Chad Basin region. His remarks were shared with you. And just an update from Sudan itself. Despite the ongoing violence, we are moving humanitarian relief for people in need around the country. Some 68 humanitarian partners are providing aid and protection across all of Sudan's 18 states. This includes UN organizations, Sudanese and international NGOs, as well as the Red Crescent Society. Since the start of this current phase of the conflict, UNICEF has delivered more than 2,500 tons of health, nutrition, water, and sanitation supplies, including in areas where the fighting continues. This assistance will benefit at least 1.6 million children. More than 600 tons of life-saving nutrition aid have reached now 11 states. That's enough for UNICEF and its partners to treat some 45,000 children suffering from severe wasting in the coming months. And also, since the start of the current phase of the conflict, UNHCR has set up some 1,000 tents in White Nile, Kassala, Gedaref, and North Darfur states to help people on the move. We're also supporting the response in neighboring countries that are hosting people fleeing the violence in Sudan. Over the weekend, the WHO delivered 10 tons of essential medicines and health supplies to Egypt. That's enough to treat 50,000 new arrivals suffering from non-communicable diseases and severe acute malnutrition. And moving south to the Central African Republic, or southwest rather, the humanitarian coordinator there, Mohamed Agoya, said today that humanitarian situation remains critical, with 3.4 million, or 56% of the population, in need of humanitarian assistance. Mr. Ayoya said the conflict in Sudan has resulted so far in the arrival of almost 14,000 men, women, and children who are seeking asylum as they flee the violence. They are mostly arriving in the northeast of the country, and including in that are Central African returnees. The conflict has also halted commercial traffic across the border, putting additional pressure on the limited resources available to the 130,000 extremely vulnerable people who are in the region. Overall displacement in the Central African Republic continues. 1 in 5 Central Africans is either internally displaced or on a refugee in neighboring country. Last year, the humanitarian community provided assistance to 1.9 million people. In the first 3 months of this year, we have provided assistance to 658,000 people with life-saving assistance. This year, we need to $533 million to assist a total of 2.4 million people. We will also continue to support people arriving from Sudan and, of course, the host communities that have opened up their arms and homes to them. The humanitarian appeal for the Central African Republic is sadly only 25% funded. And just turning to Haiti, in light of the devastating floods and landslides that we've seen over the weekend, the Office of the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs is supporting the Haitian Civilian Protection General Directorate to assess the needs and coordinate the emergency response. Authorities say at least 42 people were killed, more than 37,000 people impacted, including 19,000 people displaced. Alongside Haitian institutions, we and our partners are gearing up to deliver assistance, including shelter, food supplies, drinking water, and hygiene kits and other types of facilities. 7 of Haiti's 10 departments were impacted. The impact was worst in the west, including in the capital Port-au-Prince and in the southwest. The extent of damage is still being assessed, but the situation is extremely worrying given the hurricane season is only just beginning. As a reminder, even before the landslides and flooding, half of the population of Haiti was in need of humanitarian assistance. We urge donors to scale up the support for the country's humanitarian response plan, which is sadly only 20% funded, and it is an appeal for $720 million US. Sorry, doing a little zigzagging here. Heading back across to Africa, a quick update from Jean-Pierre Lacroix, the head of our peace operations. Today he is in Kinshasa in the DRC, where he's discussing with senior government officials the reconfiguration of the peacekeeping mission in view of a responsible transition. Over the weekend, Mr. Lacroix was in Ituri province, where he met with provincial authorities, including the military governor. He visited the site for internally displaced people in Drodro, 60 kilometers north of the provincial capital, Bunia, where peacekeepers provide physical protection to about 100,000 men, women, and children through 4 temporary operating bases and 1 permanent combat deployment. While there, Mr. Lacroix heard the testimonies of displaced children who were forced out of school due to insecurity and women who are bearing, as is sadly the case, the brunt of the conflict. Also traveling is the Assistant Secretary General for Humanitarian Affairs, Joyce Msuya, who today kicked off a 5-day visit to Japan to explore how to enhance cooperation on humanitarian action. Ms. Msuya took part in the first ever strategic dialogue with Japan's foreign ministry to discuss mounting humanitarian crises and innovative approaches to address them. While in Tokyo, she will meet with other senior Japanese government officials, as well as representatives of Japan International Cooperation Agency and aid organizations. And over the weekend, you will have seen we issued a statement expressing the Secretary General's sadness at the loss of life and injury following the train accident in Odisha in India. The Secretary General extends his deep condolences to the families of the victims, as well as the people and government of India. He wishes a full and swift recovery to all those who were injured. Our colleagues in the Office of Development Coordination tell us that Joanna Kazana-Wisniewski of Poland is taking up her new post today as the UN Resident Coordinator in Trinidad and Tobago. She will also coordinate UN development operations in Aruba, Curacao, Suriname, and St. Martin. She brings more than 20 years of experience in international development. Her full bio is on I was about to say is on sale, is online. Today is World Environment Day. In his message, the Secretary General said that this day is a call to beat plastic pollution. He called on government, companies, and consumers alike to break our addiction to plastics, champion zero waste, and build a truly circular economy. Today is also the International Day for the fight against illegal, underreported, and unregulated fishing. These activities are responsible for the loss of 11 to 26 million tons of fish every year, a vital source of nutrition in a world of growing population and persistent hunger. An important reminder to all of you and your media organizations is that the accreditation for the GA high-level meeting is open. Remember to accredit not so much yourselves, but all of your colleagues. The deadline is September 1st. The GA does happen every September, so this should not be a surprise. The 25th of September, we'll see the SDG Summit. The 26th of September is the official opening of the high-level debate. Super short quiz for you today from our friend Jane Gaffney. The island of Viti Levu is home to this island's nation capital city. And if you can't figure that out, this country also is the location where I think it's Farhan Haq's favorite movie, The Blue Lagoon, was filmed with Brooke Shields. Fiji, exactly. And who co-starred alongside Brooke Shields? Christopher Atkins. Excellent. You played, you won, you get the first question, Michelle.
Thank you, Stéphane. Two questions for you. First on Ukraine grain. Russia has said today that it sees no prospects for extending the Black Sea grain deal. Would you like to respond to that?
No. The discussions are going on. We keep constant discussions with our partners within the framework of the JCC, including the Russian Federation and Ukraine. And as we've said many a times, the grain initiative is critical to address world food prices and hunger, as is the MOU we signed with the Russian Federation on fertilizer and grain.
Can you give us any idea about what the hurdles are at the moment to restarting this ammonia pipeline?
There's a conflict going on. James.
Oh.
No.
Hang on, I'm still in two. Afghanistan, the NRC said today that they've resumed work in Kandahar and elsewhere in Afghanistan. Has the UN made any progress in carving out more exemptions for the work of female staff? Thanks.
On Afghanistan, no, I don't have any more details for you on the on our work operations, but I'll try to get you some more details. Edie and then James.
Thank you, Steph. Does the UN have any information on what's going on the ground in eastern Ukraine?
I mean, not a specific military operation. We do not have that, the mandate nor the capacity to do that. We continue in Ukraine to address the impact of the conflict through our humanitarian and human rights missions.
Is the UN still able to deliver humanitarian aid on the Ukrainian side of the front lines?
We continue our efforts to deliver humanitarian aid as close to the front lines as possible, because those are the communities that are most in need. we report, I think, almost in real time to you as soon as we have convoys. So I have not gotten any updates on new convoys today.
And on Sudan, the U.S. and Saudi Arabia have appealed for a new ceasefire. Is the UN still able to deliver humanitarian aid, or has the fighting resumed to a point where it's become difficult again?
There's been some challenges. It is, I mean, as I said earlier, we are able to deliver aid where we can, almost on a case-by-case basis, depending on what is going on in the region. I know our colleagues at WFP are having some more recent challenges in food distribution. We want to see a full and complete cessation of hostilities, so we don't have to sort of negotiate on a case-by-case basis for access. We want to see the parties in Sudan stop the fighting so we can actually help the Sudanese people at the scale that is needed.
And just a final question, where is Volker Perthes?
Volker Perthes will be making his way back to the region later this week. James.
Yeah, so two very different subjects. First, on what the SG has been talking about today, our common agenda and these policy briefs. What is the timeline for these? You're coming up with all these different ideas for member states to discuss, but what do you see as the timeline going forward? Is this all aimed at the summit for the future?
I mean, it's aimed at... It's aimed at the General Assembly debate. It's aimed at the SDG, summit. Thank you. The G20. It's aimed at all of these important dates that we are having, including the summit of the future.
Now, and you've got 11 of these briefs. You've put out 3 today. That means there are 8 more.
There are others that have been published in your absence.
Oh, have they? Sorry.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's okay.
But your AI one, there's one on AI, is that right?
The digital there's the digital one, and then we have one on misinformation coming out later this week.
No, I'm thinking.
And
you were saying there was going to be an AI policy. Is that going to be one of these policy briefs, or is it something different?
No, I mean, it's included. There's reference to it, if I'm not mistaken, the digital compact, and also in one coming out later this week. And as I often do, listening to the Secretary General replying to member states today, I would encourage you to go back and look at the video. He spoke around noon.
I heard some of it, but then
he heard around. I mean, I think I would encourage you to listen to him. I do just for your programming.
But is there another AI policy coming out, or is there? I mean, because you did at one point say, "Oh, we'll be publishing an AI policy."
No, I didn't. It's addressed within number.
This is within this.
Okay,
and so just to add to that, does he really think this timeline for all of these very important matters, the AI one, doesn't the international community need to be addressing AI much more urgently than a summit that's not taking place until September next year?
I mean, it's not a. It's not a. It's not saying like there is a specific timeline when decisions need to be made. These are things that need to be decided and looked upon now. But we also, I mean, there is obviously AI. The issue, the issue of autonomous weapons is linked to AI, which he addressed this morning. But we also can't forget the very real challenges we're facing with information integrity and with social media that still have yet to be addressed. He will be either in this room or at the stakeout, most likely on Thursday, to talk about the policy paper on information integrity.
Okay, so my very different subject was a 3-year-old Palestinian boy has died after being shot in the head by Israeli forces 4 days ago, Mohammed Tamimi. What is the Secretary General's reaction?
Yet another horrendous example of the violence that we are seeing in the occupied Palestinian territory. There needs to be a full investigation. People need to be held to account.
You say yet another, yes, yes, absolutely yet another. Nearly 40 Palestinian children killed in 2022, about 25 of the records I can find killed in 2023. When do we get the Children in Armed Conflict report? Isn't it absolutely clear now that Israel must be on that blacklist, given these figures?
It will be released late June, early July, and I think you will have to wait for the release to judge the report. Alan.
Thank you, Stéphane. I have a question regarding the ammonia pipeline. Does the UN believe that the resumption of the work of this pipeline could be accompanied by any preconditions, given the fact that this resumption was mentioned both in the agreement last year and the memorandum?
It's not for me to talk about preconditions. We just want to see an agreement. Obviously, it has to be discussed and negotiated with the parties, but I'm not going to start talking about required preconditions. Okay, you should not take long leave. You should not take long leave. But go ahead, James, go ahead.
So quickly, you mentioned that the SG will be doing disinformation later in the week, but I think that there's an important question on that right now. YouTube is no longer going to remove videos claiming that the US election was stolen. Clearly, that's just one particular issue, but it's clearly, everyone knows that that is untrue. It is false. It seems to go against the UN's policy on this and its Verify initiative. Is the UN concerned about that decision by Google,
we're
YouTube?
concerned by any decision by social media companies that lead to increase disinformation. We believe that social media companies have a responsibility for what is published on their, what is put on their platform, and we think their policy should reflect that.
Finally, on Hong Kong, Hong Kong police have detained, I think, 24 people to do with the anniversary of Tiananmen Square. What's the UN's reaction?
I would refer you to what Volker Turk said on this today.
Just to follow up to
Michelle.
Edie's earlier questions on Ukraine, would the UN expect Ukrainian authorities to give them any kind of heads up on any new major offensive?
No, they're not in the, I mean, as far as I'm aware, we're not privy to preview of military operations. Abdelhamid, did you have a question?
Yes, I do. Thank you, Stéphane. The number of Palestinian detainees has reached 1,000, is the highest ever. The detainees started a number of measures to protest that.
If some, hold on, Abdelhamid, if you could up the volume a little bit, not you, I'm asking our technician friends to do that. And in the meantime, I need to correct the record. The opening of the GA is the 19th, not the 26th.
So is that
The Tuesday of the high-level debate.
Tuesday, so
The high
18th
is the, exactly. But the accreditation deadline remains the 1st. Go ahead, Abdelhamid.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Now, the number of Palestinian detainees has reached 1,083, the highest ever. Detainees started on Sunday a number of measures to protest their detention, which will be culminated in hunger strike in the next few days. So is there any statement or position coming from the UN or the special envoy?
Thank you. Sorry, I'm frowning because you're very, very loud all of a sudden. Sorry, if we could just fix the sound issue.
Okay.
If you could mute yourself, Abdelhamid, for a second. Thank you. Just to say on detainees, I think our position remains the same, is that people who are detained by the police or security forces need to be either charged or they need to be released. Stefano.
Thank you, Stéphane. Pope Francis sent an envoy, Cardinal Zuppi, today to Kiev for in search for peace. We know that there is a Vatican initiative, but did the Vatican have contact with the Secretary General in this initiative? Did they explain
It's a
what
good
is...
question. I have to check. I didn't. I should have asked him this morning, and I did not. But I'll check. Ms. Kubiak, you're up, and thank you all.
All right, good afternoon, everyone.